Right, you're welcome back. This is your most authoritative news analysis platform, Newsfile. I'm Samson Ladiayanini, and let me just bring to your attention a few of the text messages that you are sending in. Share them with the rest of the world. Now, Kofi Adams has said earlier that there will be no need to license that the Nigerian entity, so to speak, but our attention is being drawn to Article 11 of the MPA Act, which says that a person shall not engage in, commercial activity in the downstream in that industry. So it appears that maybe let's allow them to go to court and finish it up, and let's see. Well, unless it has license from the MPA, so that's the requirement that you cannot engage in any commercial activity downstream in that industry unless you have license from the MPA. Before I get to your text messages, let me tell you what we're going to look at right after that. And this is the way I put it, that Joy FM may have ignored or breached professional auditing rules to serialize an incomplete audit report. But can we expect any substantial change in the final report? An interim draft audit that finds no one single act of good corporate administration practice, but unprofessional, unlawful, wasteful conduct and acts that smack of incompetence, thievery, and rape of the state in a project that is meant to alleviate poverty among the poorest of the Ghanaian society. I'm talking about the sad story of Sada. We'll look at that briefly, particularly because of some other challenge or issue, but would also be asking about the $305 million Ridge Hospital refurbishment project. Overpriced and corruption, or a misreading minority legislators on a mischief mission. The minority insists on a review of the contract to UK-based Crown agents' estimated realistic price of $162 million instead of the 305. It appears the minority may have gotten their maths wrong, because on the face of the 13th August 2012 order paper laid in Parliament, government sought approval for a loan of 500 million, is it, from the Export-Import Bank of USA, and another 92,500,000 from the HSBC Bank of the UK. When you put that together, you should get a total of 250 million. So is the minority wrong when it says the amount should be 305? But even that, we can still look at the question whether that is still on the high side compared to the Crown agent's estimate of 162 million. Thank you very much. Your comments, your views are welcome through the platforms that I've already announced. Now, a few of your messages here, and this one, you didn't identify yourself. You say, good morning to you and your panel. Best wishes to your dad, Haruna. Okay. I wish MPP a fruitful and peaceful Congress in Tamale. I pray that Nanado will be later elected as the flag bearer. That's not a business for today. What happens when ECOWAS does not reach an agreement before October this year? What are we doing to ensure there is no disruption to trade with Europe? This is George in Legon. Newsfile, don't miss a discussion on the Ridge Hospital shortage. Upon Alex, you're right, we can't miss that. Richard Youngfo from Media said, Sam, I have had very reliable information to the effect that there has been some, okay, I'm not going to take this one, you're talking about some security matters elsewhere. I'll try and get my production people to get in touch with you to screen that. This one says, NPP will be back from Tamale as one people, says the Lord of hosts. Amen. This is coming from Pando, Peter in Pando. And then this is George's message, which I have read. I'll read the last two messages. This one, Mahama Mahama's administration will deliver to the good people of Ghana. I hope and pray that the good Lord will see and guide us through. God bless our homeland, Ghana. This one too says, please, can you use your medium to find out from NIA when they are going to pay us? Okay, NIA still owe some people. They want their money. Please pay them. It's been quite a while. So please make sure you are paying them. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So let's go to the issues that I had sought to raise earlier. I'm talking about the Sada matter, first of all. And we're being joined now by Dr. Mausi Mawia.
Yeah.
You joined us the first time some time ago.
Yeah.
Sorry, the full name again is
Zakaria
Mawia.
Yeah.
He's a professional in the area of policy analysis when it comes to subjects like what we are going to raise. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
I understand that you were in flight. You just got down here from Kumasi.
That's correct. Yeah.
Thank you very much for joining us indeed.
Okay.
Now, I'd like first of all to go to the phone lines, and we're going to be speaking to Yoni Kolendi. He is a private legal practitioner, and we called him up because of a point in the Sada matter. Now, this is the point that I'm referring to. You may have heard Professor Ken Atefa say emphatically that what's the name of the bank again? The Stanbic bank boss was in clear conflict of interest when he allowed, as chairman of Sada board and as MD of the bank, when he allowed for the board to put its money, that is almost 75,000 Ghana cedis, million, right? Yeah, into a call account, which is not an investment account, so to speak. You know, the interim audit report that I'm referring to, I call it interim because that's my understanding of it. The report, and I just want to refer to a paragraph. Paragraph 2 of the report says, our observations during the audit have been discussed with management and their responses incorporated in this management letter. But there is an instructive paragraph 3 which says, we shall be grateful to have your response within 30 days of receipt of this management letter as stipulated in section 29(1) of the Audit Service Act. And this is actually a management letter on the back of the audit that was sent to the acting chief executive officer of the Savannah Accelerated Development Authority. And this has been serialized on Joy FM. There is an aspect that speaks about the Sada, the money that was put into that account, and that was not a wise process. This is what they said. They said, we noted that on 20th December 2012, an amount of 74,500 Ghana cedis was invested in a call account at the Stanbic Bank, Mervinpick branch in Accra. Management, however, failed to produce the investment certificate covering the deposit to authenticate the transaction. We asked the chief executive to obtain the investment certificate from the bank, as well as the interest that had accrued so far from the investment for our examination. And they also went on to say that as far as they are concerned, that process was not the best. Sada could have put its money in a better profit-yielding, facility. Good morning to you, Yoni Kolendi, and welcome to the show.
Good morning, Samson.
Right. We've had the discussion in respect of the questions of conflict of interest. Do you share a different view that, like Professor Kenatefa says, because Alhassan Andani is the chairman of the Sada board, and at the same time, and is the MD of Stanbic Bank, there is a clear conflict of interest. There's no question about it in this particular transaction?
Well, I mean, first of all, and good morning to your listeners and all my big brothers and friends in the studio. Kweku Haruna, you've gone up and forgotten of the food espresso here.
That's right.
First of all, I looked at the text of Prof's statement, and Prof actually predicates that statement with an if and an if, even though he lands on the conclusion that you have imputed to him. That in itself suggests that this is not conclusive. But to make an upfront confession whether this amounts to a conflict, Prof was my colleague in Chambers. Prof's wife is my partner in Chambers. And so, I hope that I'm not conflicted, but to the extent that this is an intellectual exercise in a hugely important matter of public interest.
Right.
There's a basis if one has an intellectual disagreement to go to it. So first of all, the basis of this whole conversation is Article 284. 284 says that a public officer shall not put himself in a position where his personal interests conflicts or is likely to conflict with the performance of the functions of his office.
Right.
So the issue turns on personal interests. Test is conflicting, which is actual, direct, or likely to conflict, which is likelihood or probability.
All right.
So something first and foremost. Now, then you go to the rules of interpretation. The first and most compelling rule of interpretation is the literal rule, which is that you give the words of the framers of the Constitution their ordinary, everyday meaning to the extent that those words are clear and unambiguous. So, where the framers of the Constitution limit a matter to first personal interest, to actual conflict or likelihood of conflict, you cannot introduce notions of perception or suspicion, because the literal rule requires that you give the words their plain and ordinary meaning as stated by the framers of the Constitution. So, first question: if you drilled it down to the basics, so to the extent that people speak about perceptions, I hold a contrary view. Now, does Mr. Andane have a personal interest in Stanbic Bank? Does he own Stanbic Bank? Is Stanbic Bank his personal property that occasions a personal interest? Now, when you come to whether conflict is actual, because it says conflict or likelihood, to do that evaluation, you've got to look at what is the role of the board and the chair of the board in relation to the kind of decision that was made, whether to place Sada's funds or not to place and where to place. Is it a management function or is it a board function? And if it is a management function, is the chairman of the board the one who takes that decision? You need this to determine whether there's actual actual conflict or likelihood of conflict. So if there are operational issues, management decisions that make recommendation to a board and the board issues a resolution, then actual conflict or likelihood of conflict on the part of a board chair becomes either non-existent or totally diminished. Now, when you get into Stanbic, assuming that you found in relation to Sada that this was a management decision, Mr. Andani is an executive chair, which I don't think he is. He's a non-executive chair, so he chairs a board of several other people.
Right. Can I ask you this question, and a bit more pointedly?
Yes, sir.
If you were his lawyer, what would have been your advice? That he's chairman of the board, he's ND of Stanbic. What would have been your advice? That he stays away from the Sada board bringing their money into his bank, or what should he do?
You see, I will answer you in a lawyer's way. First of all, the issue doesn't even arise because the law and good governance practice makes room for it. That is why there's a requirement of disclosure, and then there's a requirement of reclusion. It therefore means that it is not in all instances where a matter is connected to you in a remote way that occasions a conflict of interest. Otherwise, it will be a no, and disclosure should not be a good enough medicine for it, and reclusion should not be a good enough medicine for it. But my point is that is the board chair involved in a management decision where to place the company's funds? If it is, you make a disclosure and you exclude yourself. But ordinarily, where Sada places its funds, I do not know about the internal workings of Sada, but one will be surprised if that management function is performed by a board. So my point is that the question doesn't even arise. But if it did, the law itself and best government practice makes provision for it by saying make a disclosure. Okay, and in appropriate circumstances, recluse yourself. Otherwise, Samson, if you end up in the absurd situation where in a society like ours, where everyone knows someone, everyone is someone's classmate, everyone is someone's friend, no judge can sit in a case. Everyone comes from a tribe. So if you stretch the rule on conflict to include perception and suspicion, and not keep it within the boundaries of actual conflict or likelihood of conflict, you will create a state which will be ungovernable.
I see.
And that will be a repugnant and an absurd interpretation. In any event, the rules of constitutional interpretation doesn't allow you to contemplate even a purposive interpretation unless the literal interpretation leads to an absurdity or a repugnancy.
Okay.
In fact, it is not something I'm sure you know. Lord Simmons calls a naked usurpation of the legislative function.
Okay. So sorry. Before you take us to a legal class, and not all my audience will be able to appreciate that process. Thank you very much. We just wanted your bit on it to assist us to begin to do the discussion, particularly in respect of the question of conflict of interest. Thank you very much, sir.
Samson, I'm grateful. Thank you, sir.
Thank you indeed.
And my regards.
Right. Now this is what it is. Yes. And I'm sure you are familiar with this so far. The auditors were conclusive in their comments that this was a wrong move because Sada did not stand to benefit.
No, Samson, after listening to my very respected senior in the law, I would only add emphasis for purposes of clarity. And I'm happy that my colleague, who has a long-serving history in Parliament, is here, Nana Akumia. But, Samson, Joy FM must necessarily change your attitude in serializing inconclusive an uncompleted audit report.
Well, that is my interpretation of that audit report.
It is not your interpretation.
I am told by the news team that has it that this is complete.
And I'm saying that
is what
I'm saying that Joy FM must be circumspect in your work as much as you are holding us responsible and accountable. You should not do so at the cost of your inability to repair damage to integrity and reputation that you may have had in your attempt to serialize uncompleted. Two, on matters of law, and I bring you back to Sada. I'll come to Sada and my colleagues will have their take. I'm referring you to the Sada Act, and you want to appreciate conflict of interest even beyond constitutional provisions. And Nana is here. We have, as Parliament, over the years, strengthened what we call the conflict of interest protection clauses in every legislation. I should credit Chairman Sir as one of his specialty. Anytime we are on conflict of interest, a second reading of any bill, including Nana and Co., we pay particular interest. And in respect of Sada, first of all, the question Joy FM should be asking is that one, what is wrong if Sada decided to open a number of bank accounts? I'm not sure Sada has only one bank account and it's only with Stanbic Bank. They probably have more than three bank accounts. Two, even the interim or conclusive audit report, in Joy's word, if it's whether it's conclusive or interim. Do you understand?
The interim is my own interpretation.
This one, I will yield only to Kweku. What was the audit query? The audit query, professionally, was the absence of a certificate of investment. So the audit query is not even on the matter you are raising on conflict of interest. The audit query is that how come that this investment have been made to which we don't have an investment certificate so that we can police what interest is accruing to it. You are imputing wrongdoing to Mr. Alasan Andani, an MD of Stanbic Bank, by virtue of his membership of the Sada board.
Right.
At that board meeting, it provides, and the Sada law provides that disclosure of interest. A member of the board who has an interest in a matter for consideration, and even here, like my senior said, what interest? Did Andani have a personal interest? Certainly no.
Is that a member
he
of
is
the
not
board?
On Sada
he is
board.
The chairman.
No, wait. He is what interest? I just asked you. Okay. Can you answer that? What interest does he have on Sada board? He is serving as a non-executive member of the board, and then read further. Shall not participate in the deliberation of the board in respect of that matter. So even if a matter came with Stanbic Bank, and Mr. Alasan Andani recused himself or excused himself not to participate in it, you've been unfair to him in terms of your conclusions on this matter. So let's go to Sada board. Do you have the records of their board meetings? You must know that when the matter of opening bank account came, what role did Mr. Andani play as member of the board in deciding it? If he recused himself, as he is required to do by law, as I expect him to do, then you'll be most unfair to him. And it is not only in the Sada legislation.
Right.
In every other legislation, Parliament has taken a particular interest in this, whether as chairman or as a board member. For instance, I'll just give you a practical example. There are companies bidding to which you are my son, and you have shareholding in that particular company, and your company appears to be potentially capable of winning the bid. When it gets to the process of evaluating the bid, the law and best practice, morality, requires that I abstain and stay away from that decision. Now we simply are questioning something. No, when you get us, you want us to open up. We are saying that Joy FM stop serializing uncompleted reports and appreciate essence of audit.
And I'm telling you now,
in this particular audit report, the query was not on conflict of interest. The query professionally was absence of
we are asking that question.
certificate.
We are asking that question. We don't need the auditors.
You would have damaged people's reputation. So there's always a disclosure of interest in every legislation that Parliament has worked on recently.
Thank you. Just hold it on there. I'm coming to Nana Kumia. And Nana, once again, the question of conflict of interest is a question that was brought up by Joy. It's not the auditor's question. The auditor's question was the absence of the investment certificate. The auditor's questions included the lack of prudence in deciding on a call account instead of an investment account or a higher yielding, facility.
I am surprised at the minister's attempt to disaggregate the matter. the audit report touched on the lack of a certificate, or if you like, a receipt in ordinary language. That finding invites the question that Joy FM asked. Because you have a situation where there are anomalies with the accounts. Who is supposed to supervise the operations of the accounts for Sada? The board. The money is in the bank of the board chairman. So who is going to supervise the discrepancy? We are talking about lack of receipt. We are talking about the quality of the investment, the nature of the investment. It's the board that is going to oversee.
The bank says the documents are available, the statements are everything is clean.
Now,
there's no problem.
I'm saying that it is the board of Sada
right.
that is going to oversee the investment, isn't it? Now you have discrepancies around the investment being raised by the audit. Who is supposed to supervise, oversee that investments are done correctly? The board. Now, if the monies are in the bank of the board chairman, who is going to who within Sada is going to supervise the investment? So, the finding made by the audit that there are discrepancies with investments invites the question that you asked, that there's conflict of interest because the supervision is compromised. It's a very simple matter.
You know for a fact that he has a role in the supervision.
No, I'm not imputing.
No, something.
Right,
because
he has
telling you a management report.
Right.
And read something to guide him.
Which management report?
No, I'm even taking it from him. I don't have it. Something here. We recommend here.
46.
We recommend.
We recommend that the chief executive should ensure that an investment certificate was obtained from the bank as well as the interest that had accrued on it to authenticate the transaction.
So this is a management function, not a board function. And then Akumia must accept legally that there's a distinction between management and board at all times.
Thank you.
To talk of laxity of the board, I will not argue with it. But look at what the audit critic is obligated the chief executive and management
what
to
the
do.
minister is saying is exactly what I'm saying. It's a management function. That function has to be exercised over the board chairman. Because that function, the bank, the supervision of the investment, is in the bank of the chairman of the board. That is what, because the board is supposed to supervise the management. So if even the management is lacking, the board chairman himself is involved in the matter. So where does he exercise his supervisory role?
I see.
That's where the conflict of interest comes in.
I see.
And especially when issues are being raised about receipt for the investment, issues are being raised about the quality of the investment, the return of the investment, and so on. Who's supposed to ensure these things? Who's supposed to supervise the management? The board, and the board chairman is involved.
All right, Koku, now I say that it is my own interpretation to say this may not be a conclusive report, and this management letter, because I'm taking a cue from paragraphs 2 and 3. Paragraph 3 says that we shall be grateful to have your response within 30 days, blah, blah, of receipt of this. And the rest follow. And this letter was done on the 25th of February, 2014. Be that as it may, we know that when these drafts, if that's what it is, when these drafts or interim reports go, very little change.
Well, not in all cases.
not
in all cases. There have been occasions where the draft ended up virtually being looking like the final. I think the JIDA thing, we had a classic example there.
Right.
There were a few missing links and things.
And you look at this throughout, you don't find one comment of praise, one comment of lawful prudential conduct.
Well, I'll be careful. I'll proceed cautiously. Because we've gone through this exercise before. And I was so excited when my brother Aruna made a point that we should not, put out prematurely reports that are not final, Auditor General's. This is a matter of principle that is really non-negotiable. But we journalists, we are a very difficult breed of animals. You can't restrict us, and so we do it. I think I've done some before. But interestingly, 2001 or 2, and I think Aruna will remember, it's 2002. The minority, led by Bagby, who was the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee, did something that he's cautioning against today. The draft report, an interim report on the castle renovation and the Ministry of
I
Works and
remember.
Housing. And they ran with it and it created chaos. It ended up that it was an interim report, a draft one, and most of the findings were not conclusive. You remember Jacob
Very well.
Chevilamte had
180
provided.
million.
Eventually, when the final report came out, quite a lot of those findings were found suspect. So in some instances, draft or interim report is a very dangerous weapon to use. You can go out there and step on a mine, on a mine. Okay, so one is very cautious. And in this respect, let me be honest, I have not cited the report that you are talking about. I have not. I haven't seen a copy anywhere.
Okay.
I've only been reading Joy FM's publications and listening to radio. If it is an interim report, then you have to use it because you are a journalist, I'm a journalist, I'm not going to be able to impose an embargo on you. But you've got to use it with a lot of caution. If those replies to the queries have not been captured, you've got to be very careful. Now, on your own my Joy Online, I saw this thing. You published it. A letter from the lawyers of Stanbic to your station, and I think ethically you have published it on your website. And let me read these portions. It says, please note that Stanbic Ghana is a limited liability company with shareholders who are distinct.
Sorry, I just wanted a bit of clarity on this. Doc, I don't know what expertise you have in this area, but I've been speaking to some audit people and accounting people. I want to know what you know about it. This is a management letter which says in paragraph 2 that our observations during the audit have been discussed with management and their responses incorporated in this management letter. Then you go to paragraph 3 and it says, we shall be grateful to have your response within 30 days on receipt of this management letter as stipulated in section blah blah blah. And this one is sent to the acting chief executive. When you read the two, how do you reconcile it?
It's not a big deal. I've seen it many times.
That is complete, or is it
I've seen it's not complete.
No.
It's not complete.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon.
No, I wanted just a brief intervention. We'll finish and then you take your turn.
Okay, all right. So I don't think there's any contradiction as far as the two statements are concerned. First of all, any audit report, even if it's final, it goes through processes, and it has to be made clear that at this particular stage, factually, it's a draft report. Apart from the fact that it's a draft report, it's going to proceed to the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament, and it's going to be, looked at critically. And officers who have been asked to provide certain clarifications and explanations will be called upon.
I get that point.
Yeah. So even though they are claiming that they have had some discussions with management to be able to provide clarifications about certain findings, at the same time, that those explanations that they will be providing at that level is not conclusive. Okay. And thank you. Further information will be
management letter is not the same as an audit report.
Thank you very much.
As far as I know. Right. And we've gone through all these exercises before. If you remember the Ministry of Information and those so-called toll debt levy matters, we went through all those processes. But I just wanted to make a point. This is through the courtesy of your website. It says, furthermore, Sada has not acquired any shares or interest in the bank. The content of the article alludes only to the fact that Sada has placed funds with the bank. It is trite knowledge that this cannot in any way be construed to mean that Sada has invested in the bank. The letter implies ownership of a part, or the latter implies ownership of a part or the entire bank, which is far from the truth. As you may be aware, banks are required under the laws in Ghana to retain documentation of their clients and their transactions for a given period. Stanbic Bank mandatorily complies with these provisions. Therefore, for any report to suggest that funds placed with the bank are lost under any circumstances is ignorant and malicious, to say the least. The last paragraph here. As you claim that your source of information is an audit report, it is instructive to note that standard audit practice requires an auditor to confirm an auditee's information. This thing happened last week. Incredible.
It happens at this time.
As is my alarm for her. Okay. As you claim that your source of information is an audit report, it is instructive to note that standard audit practice requires an auditor to confirm an auditee's information with his bankers with the consent of the auditee. Unfortunately, in this instance, this fundamental and indispensable step in auditing has not been complied with. For me, this is an incomplete exercise. That's my view. You are asking for an investment certificate. They are telling you that it is not even an investment. So it is a final report from the Auditor General. And I don't know if this is coming from the Auditor General's office. Is it?
Yes,
this audit report?
At the regional level.
Yes, so it is still the Auditor General's office. I'm sure if they completed the exercise, they would have gone through this process. If the Sada management is unable to produce documentation for whatever reasons, nothing stops the Auditor General. For the law empowers the Auditor General to request the bank for documentation. And as is being stated here, the bank itself is under obligation by law to provide those documentation. If this exercise is completed, you may get revision as to what is the nature of that deposit that has been made with the bank, as to whether it's an investment account or not. But I think it's too early. I don't have a problem with journalists who do that, because I do it too. So I am not about to judge journalistic standards.
The thing is that, like I said in my sum, you would find that, and I'm sure that subsequently we'll come to interrogate those matters. You find that in a report, regardless that it's interim, you don't find one single correct thing done according to the auditors. There are taxes that ought to be paid that have not been paid, or the entity's money is used to pay tax, personal income tax or so, when the people are supposed to pay. There are people who have been paid salaries that they ought to refund, and they were asked to refund the money. Sada was supposed to take the steps to get the people to refund the money. For a long time, they have not acted. The money is not being refunded. Right. You see, there are travels that were done without good approval. And I'm saying that it may be interim, but to find that in such a report, you can't find one single line or sentence or of commendation or pointing to rightness of something that's been done. It must be a worry, isn't it?
Thank you so much. Definitely, it's worrying. It's a genuine concern to anybody, you know, who has an interest in development, and particularly in the project like Sada, which is an organization that is supposed to help spur growth at that particular pole, to ensure that at least there is a kind of a match between the gap that existed between the north and the south. So to that extent, it's something that is very worrying, that reports have come and they are talking about things that suggest that appropriate actions were not taken, or at least certain things happened that would go a long way to affect, you know, the image and the progress of this particular organization. However, like panelists have discussed, in saying so, at the same time, we are sounding a word of caution to journalists and to all concerned to understand that there is a corporate image that we need to protect as a country, and we need all to come together to support this particular great initiative, so that before we come out with any particular publication or anything about this particular great organization, we need to weigh the benefits against, you know, the demerits. So, for instance, if at the end of the day there are people who are, you know, taking this particular organization seriously, like development partners, like private people who are trying to engage with the organization, and then we come out with reports that maybe, being branded as draft, not incomplete. At the same time, the people who have been tasked to run it are being cited as having, you know, exercised, you know, good judgment in taking decisions. It's something that, you know, we are very worried about, and we think that everybody, including management, including journalists, including all concerned, should be guided by the principle of corporate identity, by the principle of ensuring that the organization succeeds, you know, in ensuring that that particular area of the country is supported to come at par with the South. In fact, if you look at the program, you know, if we look at the real program of development that is being, you know, employed in this particular one, various poles have been identified across the country, and not just the north. And this one has been started. There is also a Western Corridor Development Authority that has been talked about. It's also another pool that, you know, development people are hoping that when projects start there, it will also, you know, support in the growth of the country.
Okay.
So I think that as a body,
I regret that you came in a bit late.
Yeah. Can I just?
Our time is up. Just forgive me.
I want to make some small.
We'll return to this. We'll return to this subsequently. So we'll deal with the whole body and all the details.
Yeah, something on the
because
issue.
It's murky in there very much. I can tell you that.
On the issue of
sorry, I've run out of time. And thank you very much for all of you who have been. Yes, unfortunately, unfortunately, yeah, it's a standing matter, and we could deal with some time to come. Thank you very much. I'm Samson Ladi Anyanini. You've been listening to Abdul Malik Wekubaku, Junior Editor-in-Chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper. Haruna Idrisi is Minister of Trade and Industry. Nana Komia is former Communications Director of the NPP. Dr. Mawea Zakaria is Development and Organization Policy Analyst. We spoke to Senya Hosi on the phone of the Chamber of Bulk Oil Distributors, and we also spoke to Kofi Adams and Yoni Kolendi. Thank you very much. This show is repeated at 9:30 on Multi TV as well. Good afternoon. The news is up next, and our continuing coverage of the NPP's conference will be underway. Thank you very much.